This season of RecLess is brought to you by Civic Plus. For all of our park and rec pros out there, do you constantly feel like you're putting out fires? Dealing with registrations, facility bookings, team calendars, it's a non-stop juggling act. And all the admin work as well. It's keeping you from doing what really matters, serving your community. That's where Civic Plus comes in. Their comprehensive parks and recreation management solution streamlines everything from online registration to facility scheduling and payments. It's all in one place. Parks and Rec Management by Civic Plus automates the busy work that bogs you down so you can spend less time on paperwork and more time creating unforgettable programs for your residents and communities. Civic Plus is a trusted partner for thousands of high-performing civic leaders, helping them balance better services with limited resources. With over 25 years' experience and a team of 900 experts, Civic Plus powers over 10,000 organizations and touches 340 million lives every day. If you're ready to trade out burnout for impact, visit civicplus.com. The best-run local governments run on Civic Plus technology.
Welcome to Season 5 of RecLess, the podcast making you smarter and more knowledgeable about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from across the country bringing you a surprise guest each episode. Listen in on a great conversation, maybe take some notes, and definitely enjoy a couple of laughs. This is RecLess.
Did you watch the game last night?
No.
Have you ever seen the Arizona Cardinals head coach?
He looks like he's 18.
I was going to say, in a hat and a hoodie, I felt like he bared a resemblance to Jay.
Oh, I don't know about that, but he looks very young.
Yeah, he's well, I mean, Mike McDonald, the head coach of Seattle, is younger. I think they said the guy Gannon was like 42. He's like the 11th or 12th youngest coach in the NFL or something, which would put him right around, I guess, the midway point. But I don't know. I got Jay vibes from him yesterday.
Jay vibes.
They made a nice comeback. Just didn't finish the job.
I was sweating it there for a little bit.
I stayed up till the end.
Yeah, I had Parks Commission, so it took me till 12:45 to watch it because I watched it from the start, and so.
All right, guys, you ready to rock and roll? We've kept our guest waiting far too long.
Far too long.
We still got some business to get into ourselves before we get the guest on, but you ready to start?
Let's do it.
And for the record, it was Shane's fault, right?
We were talking about trying to figure out a way to blame you.
Wait, are we going to acknowledge that it was Shane's fault, right?
It was definitely my fault.
It was Shane's fault. Yes.
Couldn't find the record button.
I mean, it didn't. I will take some of the blame because I was about 2 minutes behind where I really wanted, 3 minutes behind where I wanted to be. So maybe if we had that 3 minutes back, we could have solved Shane's problems a little earlier. Welcome to RecLess, everyone. We are now into episode 8 of season 5. It's so nice not to be interrupted during my welcome. It seems to be a Jay thing now.
I held out.
I am Tom Venniro, joined as always with Shane Mize and Jay Tryon. How you guys doing? We just got back from Orlando this week. You recovered?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, like, it's a bittersweet. Like, the week is awesome. It's packed. It's super busy, but it's also so fulfilling to see all the people and, connect with so many great individuals. So I'm never like ready to go home, but on the other half, like, I miss my family and ready for a routine and sleeping in my own bed and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I have not grown tired of hearing how impactful either the podcast or something we've done from the podcast, whether it's a scholarship or whatever, has been for people. That's a lot of energy. I really appreciate that. But the week itself, I definitely powered down, introvert, extrovert wise, or whatever it is, energy wise.
Yeah, I was talking to our guest before on a little prep call, and we were talking about how the week, it's a 3-week process for me anyway, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate. The week before, you're trying to do what you can to be prepared, to be mentally present at the conference and not have to really think about too much what's going on back home, although a lot of the times that's out of our control. And then the week after is that catch-up week. You're riding this high from all that you just experienced, but you got to dive back in and really, immerse yourself into the here and now, which also is a challenge because you're trying to plan for the future with all the great lessons and tips and tricks you take back from the conversations in the sessions. So always a balancing act. We have certainly talked about conference enough on this show, but we're going to talk more about it.
Let's do it.
So here we go. We've had some shared experiences. We've met a lot of people, and I would say we all agree that the conference is definitely a highlight of the year. That said, we experience some happenings that are probably pretty routine during a conference. And then, of course, with RecLess or whatever it may be, there's always something different about the next conference. So what my question for you both is today, what's one happening or experience from this conference that was new and unique to any of the previous conferences that you've attended, national, that you are just really psyched, proud of, that you want to share? And I'll give you some time to think, and I'll go ahead, since I've had some time to think about this myself. Last year in Atlanta, we had the first RecLess meetup, and at that, we presented a large check to Maria Cepeda for a little bit of assistance in getting her at conference. And I think we all agreed at some point early on, if that we ever had the opportunity, that was a big goal of ours, was to give back to what gave to us, young professionals, the YPN. This year, what was new, I think, to all of us, and so I'm going to kind of steal your thunder if this was what you were thinking, and Shane, you prefaced it a little while ago, we had the opportunity to give some finances and support to 5 different individuals. Mm-hmm. All of which made their way to the social this year, which was at Topgolf in partnership with the YPN. Being able to do that was new. I definitely feel that I would definitely say the peak of that conference was Tuesday at that social. We had gone through a lot already at that point, and that was definitely, there was so much going on. Running around during that social, photos. The most valuable photos or experiences that I could think back of when I posted on LinkedIn for RecLess were those photos with the individuals with the big check. And we've heard from them. Shane reached out to a bunch of them, copied us in on a group text, the responses that they had of how that impacted them, how thankful and grateful they are. And this is just the start for us, guys. We now have built a little bit of a process or a stream where we can now do a lot more for individuals that are in certain, or I'd say similar situations than the 5 individuals. And I just want to tell you the impact of that from what I see from those individuals. And again, hopefully we'll see a lot from those 5 individuals and then anybody that we might be able to assist in the future. But Jordy and I have talked about this at the show. We were paired on the Academy Mentorship Program years ago. One of the most engaged pairings I've had. The conversations were great. He got to his first conference in Dallas, and I'm telling you, he never looked back. He saw the value of the networking and his excitement, and he is a rising star. He is doing great things in Connecticut. And just the other day, he reached out to me in a text aside from our group, and he was sharing something with me that he was so proud of. He got a letter from Connecticut saying that he had won their Young Professional of the Year award.
Oh, so congrats.
He just won that. And with that in Connecticut, they take it a step further and they give $1,000 award to that individual. Cool. And he is already thinking about what he's going to be.
Do you think we could apply for that?
I mean, you never know.
$1,000, $1,000.
Yeah, yes. That's true. That's true. He was so excited. He's already thinking about what he's going to do. And I think most people would say, oh, I'm going to recoup that money from the money I put into it because he paid his way. Yep. Or I'm just going to put that away and take a vacation. He's already, everything he's talking about, I'm just looking to see what I'm going to use that for next. Whether it was an aquatics conference, he brought that up. Maybe next year's national, bank it for that.
Yeah.
And I see big things in the future for someone like Jordy. And that's special to be able to share a moment with them, but then hear everything that they have going on and the accomplishments that they're making and the moves, the waves that they make back home. So I think that was one of the more unique experiences that I've ever been a part of at the conference. I think the Maria piece was awesome, but that was kind of organic and not really planned. This came together a month or so before the conference, and it was very intentional and extremely rewarding, and just so glad to be able to be a part of that and help some individuals out.
Yeah, if Jay didn't have anything yet, he gave me the eyebrows.
But you can go.
He gave me the eyebrows.
And you know what? Before you go, Shane, I want to give credit where credit's due. Jay and I did a little discernment. We did not know if it was going to be possible 1 month before the conference to make what we just spoke about happen, and Shane pushed. And so, credit, Shane, you messed up today's podcast. We're 20 minutes late because of you, but you get that credit for pushing that through and
I'm
making
going
it
to
a reality.
celebrate that with this. Thank you. Thank you very much. Monster opening. Oh, it was a team thing. Y'all were supportive. Y'all could have poo-pooed it. You know, we kind of do a majority vote on everything we do, and y'all could have said not this time. So I was appreciative of the opportunity to run with it, and just had high hopes that we'd send the call out and we'd get a couple responses. We got 7 responses. We couldn't fund them all. We're still working on ways to engage those other folks. But yeah, I agree, Tom. That was cool. I think another thing, and hopefully this continues, but it was really our first here, was how many sponsorship opportunities we were able to garner. We had a sponsorship last year with Nile, so sponsorships wasn't really the first time we've had one. But our thing with Nile was just Nile being a great buddy, and knowing that we were upside down on this podcast already with what we pay for Zoom and our hosting fees and all the other things, that we actually don't make any money off this. And we wanted to do some cool shirts last year, and Nile was able to sponsor some shirts, and we were able to use the extra to do a little bit for Maria. This year, people have been listening to our episodes, so we'll hear the opening roll and the mid-roll commercials. And sometimes you fast forward through them, or sometimes you think, oh my gosh, these guys. We talked to somebody in Minnesota, John Stutzman. There's a listener in Minnesota that talked to John that when I went up and spoke in Minnesota, I got to meet him. He's kind of a super fan. And he said, man, these guys must start to be making some money. They got all these sponsorships. And John was like, they put every dollar back into, others and young professionals. And that guy was like, oh, that's so cool. And so for the people out there that are fast forwarding through this, obviously, we don't blame you for, but also the mid-roll and opening things. Our houses haven't gotten better. Our cars haven't gotten better. We're not in a different tax bracket now. We really have been putting all that back into young professionals or other opportunities. And we're excited about the other things we're hoping to do with it. But good and bad dealing with sponsors, getting on sponsorship calls and sending out agreements, and Jay having to work on an LLC and a bank account. And I think sometimes it's hectic, but it's beautifully hectic, and it makes for a really tough run up to conference sometimes when we're doing all these things and we're trying to nail all this down. But at the end of it, I wouldn't have changed one thing if it meant we got the sponsorships we did, and we got to do the things, whether we hosted the social, whether we bribed Topgolf to let us stay a little longer with the amount of people we had, or whether we were able to pour into these 5 professionals, or the shirts. I wouldn't have changed a thing. So the sponsorships was new. It's different. I think it'll continue to happen. I don't think we're the world's greatest at it. We're still kind of doing it by self-defense in some ways, but we've had some really incredible people who have seen the things we want to do and have been like, yeah, we're willing to support that. And they overlook our shortcomings and bless the people that we've been able to help. So very appreciative of that portion of this process.
That's great. How about you, Jay?
When you first posed the question, obviously the impact with the scholarships, and that was the first thing that came to my head. But to go down a different direction,
it's Disney ears, wasn't it?
Disney ears.
It's the Disney
ears. That
ears.
didn't come to mind, but it's not a bad topic to discuss. In reality, is what I want to talk about is the conversations we had with NRPA staff to kind of, in a way, give testimonials. So, and for those that may not know what I'm referencing, the Open Space podcast crew had a booth set up for a variety of different professionals to come in and just answer some questions that NRPA wanted to ask their members. And some of it was, why'd you become a member? What is your favorite memory at a conference? What motivates you to be involved in NRPA? What have you done to, make sure you stay in tune with the profession? All these different questions. All 3 of us did it. We did it individually. And as I was reflecting on those questions, and I'm going through everything, and I think I counted, last week was my 14th conference. So obviously, been going to a lot of conferences, and they all have different impact, different meaning to me. But I'm sitting there and I'm answering these questions from NRPA, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, none of this would have been possible without so much support from the NRPA staff, the NRPA committees that I've been involved with. And obviously, like, the conference is put on by NRPA. But put that aside, the questions that they were asking, a lot of it had to do with, how did different aspects of your career come together, or how did you get involved in this or get involved with that, or, what are a memory that you want to reflect on. And so many of these things that we're talking about with impact and with, I mean, even what Shane's mentioning with sponsorships, it wouldn't be possible without NRPA because we've all come together because of YPN, because of conferences. So I think that to me is like this big, huge takeaway of I've never really sat and reflected on what NRPA is actually meant to me because I've never been asked that question. And I've never been asked the question on a memory or an impact or on an engagement opportunity to like improve others too. And I think we do it just because we love what we do and we have a passion for it. But at the root of this, like, I'm just thankful that NRPA is willing and able to continue to push the bar for our profession and provide opportunities for those that want to get involved and want to better themselves and better their agencies because of that, so many other things have come together and will have a lasting impact on not just us individually, but on future professionals and departments and communities that we all serve.
It's been building every single year, but for our relationship and how close we are, I think it's really cool that every single year it continues to crescendo up towards this thing that we're a team of people that you see Tom, and that's Tom, but it's also 1/3 of RecLess or whatever. Like it continues to happen organically, but then we're all just like, of course, Court reached out to all of us and asked if we would sign up. And then we literally signed up without talking to each other, and we were back to back to back. Court reached out and thought that was hilarious and was like, why don't you interview together? But like, whether it's John Prue or the armed forces with the armed forces thing, or something with Amelia, or something with anything that's happening right now, it just seems to be like, as much as we're individuals, still people think of us as a group, and I think that's cool as well. And it's becoming more and more apparent at every conference that I can't get away from y'all if I wanted to.
Yeah, some days I really love that.
Yeah, some days. Mostly when we're not around each other.
So, before we get to the guest, because we have kept this guest waiting too long, you had mentioned that this podcast does not give us better homes or cars. Speak for yourself. Now,
got a van.
Listen, this is
Van
not
upgrade.
this is not podcast money, but I did get a new van yesterday. So I am in hashtag van life. Jay, you helped push me into that direction. Shane had great things to say. Kids are pumped. And I am now.
You gonna put Ret Tech along the side of it, or what are you gonna?
Well,
I got space. It's white. I got a lot of space.
I'll be honest. When I saw your post on social media and it was like, another baby on the way, we bit the bullet. We bought a van when we had our first kid. So like, whether you got one kid or three kids, man, I've had nothing but love about having a minivan, and I have no shame in saying that.
No,
I was telling Tom, I hopped into the first minivan we bought, and we had 3 kids, and my buddy was giving me so much crap, and I swung by and picked him up, and he got in, and we're not a mile down the road, and he says, "This is fucking awesome. These seats are great. This is not, it rides perfect." I was like, I know, this is insane. So minivans get a bad rap, but that's a smooth ride.
Hashtag van life. Hashtag earmuffs Rooney.
Earmuffs Rooney.
All right, let's get into the guest, everyone. I'm excited. I'm always excited. We got
Is
great
it Rooney?
people.
Did we get her out of school?
We did not get Rooney out of school.
Okay.
We want to promote those good habits, Shane. So,
That's right.
So let's get into it. Let's start with Orlando. Just a couple vague pieces for you all to know is this individual also shares an affinity for Disney.
Do they?
So already one of the best people that you're ever going to talk to. This individual was present at our gathering at Topgolf. So that narrows it down to 200 people.
Yeah.
Good luck. All right. Our guest has BS in Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Studies, Tourism and Hospitality Management, Master of Business Administration, has over 16,000 miles ridden on their motorcycle. Fun fact. A current actually just finished their first year on the NRPA Board of Directors. Outside of the states that they've lived in or served, plural, Utah might just be their next favorite state. Ski Utah is the phrase that I was provided. I think it's something like the best powders, and I'll let them tell the story. But a skier and a lover of Utah in the ski world out there. Our guest grew up as a park and recreation kid, almost the very definition of a park and recreation kid when you hear the story. But they now lead the department that they grew up attending programs. So you got anything? Or is it still too vague for you?
Initials HT.
This guest was asked by another one of you to potentially be a guest in the very near future.
He played it very well.
They live by the idea that self-promotion is the best way to achieve your goals, and they believe you sometimes have to go to grow, stepping outside of the comfort zone to get where you are or where you want to be. Our guest has
They're a filthy little liar, too.
Our guest has served in Virginia Beach, Prince William County, Norfolk, Virginia, and also Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Our guest, please welcome, with the moniker Field of Dreams Team, an Iowa reference, Hashim Taylor, currently with the city of Alexandria, Virginia. Hashim,
filthy
welcome.
Liar.
Hey, how we doing? Hey, guys.
What's going on?
How's it going?
It's going well. It's an honor to be here. It's Shane, I'm sorry. When we asked about it at the Topgolf event, I was like, yeah, we'll talk.
That's the game. That's the game. I
Feels
get
good
it.
to get one over on Shane. We've gotten Jay a few times, I think myself, but now we got Shane.
That's the game.
That was good. That was good.
That was good. He played it well, though.
I did.
He came up to me at the actual social. He's like, listen, one of your guys asked me about it. And I had asked if Hashim
I told him too. You can't be going with anybody else.
Yeah,
You gotta go with me.
yeah.
Yep.
I asked if he was willing to join us a couple weeks before. It was just too close to the conference. So either way, I'm super glad to make this happen. And Hashim, thank you for your time. I want to start with, you've got a great story. We've gotten to know you a little bit over the last few years, and this is going to be a great opportunity to get to know you better and share your story. But before that, you've been to these conferences and you've had shared experiences with individuals. You've had recognition, shared celebrations with others, the networking, all of it, right? Can you answer the same question I asked these two gentlemen to begin with? What is something that was unique and new to this conference that you didn't experience before, that you were really excited about, or something you were maybe able to bring back with you?
Of course, you have the great sessions, you have the great networking, but I would say the fellowship at the opening reception that was at Universal. Having that opportunity to participate in a amusement park with recreation professionals outside of the classroom and that group, being on alongside of a roller coaster with Nile or experiencing Jesus being on his first roller coaster in 20 years, those are memories that you can't recreate. And I think that was a part of like being in Orlando, having that opportunity to fellowship, but also being at the Topgolf event, connecting with people that you might not have connected with before outside of going to a session or an exhibit hall. Like you're having a good time at the podcast event with the young professionals and creating those memorable experiences. So at next year, when we're in Philly, that you're going to be like, remember when we were in Orlando? And you're going to always have those memories to relate to. So for me, it was the relationship that we had outside of the classroom and that environment with networking, but also doing something fun that was engaging at the amusement park, but also at Topgolf.
It's nice to hear that because the Topgolf is a blur for us. Like we couldn't tell you if people enjoyed it or not. We hope people enjoyed it, and we did everything we could to make sure people enjoyed it. But like I saw you, Hashim, for a couple seconds, pounded fist, said, "Hey, we should do this thing," and I couldn't have dived down and scheduled a time even if I wanted to because we're running around like crazy. So hopefully people at Topgolf enjoyed Topgolf because it was a work event for us for sure.
Yeah, from my vantage point, everyone had fun. I was bouncing around different bays and people were really enjoying it. So kudos to y'all.
And I would agree on the Universal side because that was super unique. And Tom and I went around on a couple rides with Michael Biedenstein and Derek Donlevy, and I went on a ride with Nile. And you don't get to do that typically at a conference. I mean, a lot of times you're sitting around at a social and it's a restaurant or a bar or, an outdoor area that's just more open space than a theme park. And I mean, I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to go on a roller coaster with these folks again, because I mean, how often are you getting that opportunity? And, I don't even go to theme parks that often. And when I do, it's typically with my 12-year-old because he loves rides. But, to do it with a bunch of adults that love what we do, it was fun and in a different level.
brings you back a little bit to the days when we were, probably in high school or whatever, and we would roll around with people that we wanted to have those conversations with and experience those thrills. Now we got Shane to walk halfway through the line of what was it, the manta
The
ray?
Manta.
The manta. He got halfway through and we were with that might have been the first ride, but we were going through and then all of a sudden we turned back and he was gone.
See, the
Yeah.
problem with these guys is they walk too fast. Like if they would have bracketed me, they probably could have got me on it. But at some point, they turn a corner, and I'm like, "Fuck this!" Hashtag Rooney. I'm not riding this stupid ride, and they don't realize I'm gone until they're two other corners down the way. So I'm not a roller coaster ride. I'm the designated driver of roller coaster rides. I'll hold your shit. Give me your purse, your bags, your phone, whatever. I have never been a roller coaster rider. I've seen the people who make those things. It's a judgment. No, thank you. Hey, while we got you here, I'm thinking, okay, what would people want to hear? I don't know if we've had a lot of board directors on here, and I definitely don't know if we've really quizzed them on kind of what they do, right? Your conference is a little different than everybody else's conference once you become a board director, but you know, a board director at NRPA does what, and what type of impact, sway is the wrong word, but what type of decisions are you making? What type of things come through you? Would you relate it a lot more like a city council, as opposed to, a board that governs a group of people that serves a community? What's it like to be a board director, and what are the decisions you are talking about? Is it super in the weeds? Are y'all pretty high up in the ground? Everything that you can provide.
Sure. So I'm closing out my first year, going into my second year. So I'm still kind of learning and navigating what that looks like. But I know during my first year, we launched the strategic plan, and it talks about the high levels, the 7 dimensions of well-being, and how to get that down to all the different levels within Parks and Recreation as a whole. When we have that board meeting the Monday before every conference, we kind of talk through the financials, some strategy, and where we're headed as a board. And the first year, I would say it was just like I was just sitting there learning a lot, listening, because you really don't know. Every board is different. I've been on boards in Virginia, and I've been on separate boards, but every board is, a little bit unique. But for NRPA, it's really the advocacy aspect of it, and really making sure that everyone knows what we're trying to advocate for, and some of the things that NRPA is doing, amplifying the messages that they are putting out there, and how we can make that connection. One thing that I've been really more involved in is NRPA Connect on the website, kind of diving in there and kind of learning much as possible regarding my role as a board member, but how I can continue to advance the mission and the vision of NRPA, and how to make sure that we get the buy-in from everyone, whether you're an urban director or a rural director or just a small town in Iowa. How can you see yourself in being involved in NRPA, and the importance of certification, the importance of membership, and the importance of going to conference, and what does that conference mean in certifications? I'm still learning a lot as I'm going into my second year as a board member. But I know what I'm trying to do from my seat on the board, being that younger professional, is amplifying the messages that NRPA is doing, whether it's from the strategic plan, but also advancing the advocacy of why Parks and Recreation is important throughout various communities.
I think it's interesting because the board's changed over the years. We had Linda Kotowski on and Jane Addams on in previous episodes, and they both talked about there was like a 50-person board at one time. It was oversaturated, and Barbara Tulipane, who was pivotal for us in starting the Young Professional Network. I remember one time she said she wanted a board of just Vanderbilts, and she wanted just wealthy people on the board that would donate money. It seems like Christine Stratton's board is very much a working board. It's got park and rec professionals or park and rec adjacent professionals, I guess, there to provide guidance and feedback. And so it's interesting that a board takes on, in some ways, the leadership of the CEO or the president, or whatever we call the executive director role. In the past, we've had different names for it, but it definitely seems to be much more of a working board. Everyone's someone in the industry at some point or industry adjacent. Was there anyone you were shocked to see on that board? You're like, oh, I didn't realize that is what's considered part of our industry. Or, when you think of Parks and Rec, sometimes there is a depth to what we offer, and it's very easy to say, oh, Parks and Rec is government, suburban Park and Rec, and sometimes you see some really adjacent stuff in our industry.
Not that I can think of. I think with the current board right now, there's very a diverse group of individuals that represent the park and rec, field, whether it's consultants, or advocacy or just professionals. I think right now the board really has a strong makeup on how to continue to advance, the mission and vision of NRPA.
And Hashim, how did you go about wanting to pursue that? Is that something you've always wanted to do? Did someone ask you to be a part of it? Did it just kind of fall in your lap, or was that a goal of yours that you've had for a long time?
I always had a goal to continue to advance in the career. And as Tom mentioned, when I came on, I was, a strong advocate of like, how do I promote myself? I have a mentor, Dr. Tiffany Johnson,
Oh
and we
boy.
were texting one day, Dr. J,
Oh boy.
and she was like, "Hey, there's going to be an opportunity to come up. Keep your eyes open, and always, you trust me. I got something for you." It's like, okay. So when I saw the board position come up, I applied, and I told her I applied, and she was like, "That's what I'm talking about. You gotta continue to, be uncomfortable and continue to grow and being that champion for me." Because sometimes I was like, "Oh, I doubt myself." So I applied, went through the interview process. And I was selected and I was honored. I was like, I don't know what this necessarily means from a national perspective, but I'm going to, give it my all for the time that I'm on it. So that's how I found out about it, and having someone, push me to take that, leap of faith to actually apply to see what happens.
And what does an interview process for that look like?
It's kind of like an interview for a job.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking for? It was a two-part interview. There's quite a bit that goes into it with the governance committee, but it's pretty expensive. You got to submit a resume, you got to interview, you got to answer quite a bit of questions, fill out the application. It's pretty much, I would say, I felt like I was interviewing for a position to get onto the board.
We'll be right back.
Hey, listener, just because the national conference is in our rearview mirror doesn't mean the RecLess sponsorship opportunities are. Every RecLess sponsorship opportunity goes to professional development for those who need it for state and national conferences. So if you know anyone interested in a mid-commercial episode like this one, sponsoring our social media or our website, please send them to recklesspod.com. That's recklesspod.com, and then have them click on the sponsorship tab for more info. Okay, now on with the show.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about your origin story and how you got into the profession, because you shared some really great thoughts and really, almost seem like they're these fond memories of yours of how you recall the profession and were first introduced to it. And I know there's a lot of individuals out there. We've had guests who are, quote unquote, Parks and Rec kids. Your story is definitely a little more unique in the sense you told me a little bit about your history and your childhood and how that really pushed you into Parks and Recreation as a support system. We say that all the time to our part-time and seasonal staff. I don't know how many individuals that hits with and resonates with, but for the individuals, the youth, especially the youth and the seniors, right? Those two pockets, we are a huge support system and asset for those people, those families, those individuals. And you had an experience like that growing up. So talk a little to your experience and how you were really first perceiving or got into Parks and Rec, and then how you kind of dove into that first working role, and then almost the full circle that you're now back in the organization that you grew up participating with.
Yeah. So I got introduced to Parks and Rec like early on. So I was a kid. My parents got divorced when I was 7. So I spent a lot of time at that point. We still have that same rec center. The name has changed, but attached to my elementary school. So after elementary school, I went to the rec center. Then it was, Core Kelly Recreation Center. Now is Leonard Chick Armstrong here in Alexandria, Virginia. And I spent a lot of time there, both, after school, but also during the weekends because I needed somewhere to go while my mom was working her multiple jobs. And there's when I learned from the leaders that was there about how to be a young man and how to carry myself because I was acting out due to that divorce. So, it's a traumatic experience when your parents, go through a divorce at 7 and you're acting out because you're seeking that attention. So there was some male role models there who was working at the time who was like, "Hey, I'm going to take you under my wing because I see you're acting out. What's going on?" So they took me under their wing. So that's when I found really the passion for, Parks and Recreation because I had individuals that were unofficial mentors in my life, making sure I was on a straight and narrow. Fast forward to I get to the university, I was going to be a business major. My goal was to work at Goldman Sachs. I wanted to be a banker up in New York, have a nice penthouse, all the fancy things you see on some of the movies, Wall Street, etc. But then I had a professor at the time introduce me to Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Studies. They were like, you want to have fun while you're working and not just get paid for the money. Do you want to have fun while you're working? So I went to a couple classes to shadow. And I would say my sophomore year is when I actually changed my major from a business major to a Parks, Recreation, and Tourism major with a concentration in tourism management. Um, so then I was like, I found my passion. So I switched my business major to a minor. So fast forward with that type of major, you have to do a full internship. So it's like 14 weeks, like 1,600 hours. So I was like, where am I going to do an internship with Parks and Recreation? I'm like, I'm going to go back home and do it. So the city of Alexandria accepted me as a full intern. So I wasn't getting paid for those 15 weeks full semester. I was doing my internship and then I was also applied for a job. So when I was not working my internship, I can work as a lifeguard at the indoor pool here. So I did that for a while and then went on to Virginia Beach. And I was like, one day I'm going to come back home and lead this organization that I grew up in, that, shaped me to who I am today. And all the articles when I got the director job in Cedar Rapids, I talked about my grassroots, being in Alexandria and my first experience at Core Kelly, now Leonard Jake Armstrong. And when the opportunity presented itself to come back home, I was like, I got to apply. And I went through the process, but now this is a full circle moment because some of the individuals that helped shape who I am today, some of them are still in the organization, but some of them have gone on. But it was great for when they made the announcement that I came back, that they reached out to me and was like, man, I knew you were going to make it. I knew you were just acting out. You just needed some structure to have that and have those community members still in the community, remembering when I was younger. It's just a full circle moment. I tell myself every day, like, this is a gift and you got to make sure that you keep paying it forward, making sure that your department represents, what you had as growing up, making sure that you create those systems that everyone has equal access to recreation. Everyone feels welcome. It's a safe space and really pour into the community, especially our youth right now. We really need to focus on our youth. And I like me being that example that I grew up in the system and that I was you before. You can see it to be it. You can be me one day. So I think that's just a full circle moment back to the community that made me who I am.
The story, it's so fascinating and it's really it's motivating. It's emotional. It kind of moves people to see the impact that we can make as professionals, and you have a particular story of how it impacted you right in your own hometown. And now, of course, you're there leading the charge is just very inspiring. We recently had and Jay, you were part of the group that was working on a choice career campaign with the academy. Your story is perfect for recruitment of showing individuals how you can be a part of this, but it's more than just being a part of it as a participant. You can make a career out of it and find the passion. So I just wanted to add that. It's just your story is really inspirational and I appreciate you sharing that. Fun fact, and I love connections, guys. I think when we look at some of the connections that we have and your mentor, Tiffany Johnson, we all have a relationship with her. I'm sure she probably calls you little bro or something like that because that's Tiffany's lingo. But also in Virginia Beach, you had the pleasure of working with friend of the show, Michael Calvert, and former guest, Michael Kirschman. A couple more
Yeah,
connections there.
absolutely.
It's
And
funny.
really, Michael Talbert put me in a position to kind of really, when I first got there, to kind of showcase a lot of public facing. He put me on a lot of committees, and so did Michael Calvert as well. Calvert and Kirschman, I'm sorry, both of them. They saw that and put me on committees to kind of really expand my reach. So I really appreciate them as well.
So Tiffany calls you little bro. She calls me asshole. I don't understand why.
We all.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had to chuckle when you were talking about being a business major and entry level Goldman Sachs, and then you switched and your entry level was like a free internship. I'm sure your business professors were like, "What the hell is this guy doing?"
Yeah.
But it's funny. That is obviously what success in Parks and Rec looks like versus what success outside of Parks and Rec looks like in some ways. Like I did a presentation to Traps about work-life balance, and I said it was a scam, but that was just to get people in. But the thing is, work-life balance, when you hear about it, for a banker that works 8 to 5 is one thing. There's just no real 8 to 5s in our industry. And so it's tough to ever compare our work-life balance to anybody else's work-life balance, because your work-life balance is having your kids at the fireworks show, having the kids do the event ahead of time, or having your family in the parade. That's your work-life balance. Our work schedules are just, if a financial consultant is working a 10-hour day, something's gone terribly wrong. Well, every special event person that's ever worked an event has worked at least a 10-hour day. And every person that's ever worked camp or been a lifeguard pool manager has probably seen plenty of like 10-hour days, maybe back to back to back. And so, our work-life balance is different. What we judge as success is different. You've come back to a community that they'll be renaming a building after you someday with the impact that you'll have in that space. And, the Goldman Sachs of the world won't really understand that. And that's okay. It's cool that you found that before you got to a point where you had to make that decision. I think sometimes I wish we did a better job of career planning our young professionals, because they get into a job where they're making a lot of money, but they're miserable. And then they have to go find, and we say, you can't make money in Parks and Rec. I think all of us live a very comfortable life in Parks and Rec. You just don't make the money you see in some of the private sector stuff. And if you're starting to make that money and then you have to pull out of it, it's a really tough mind fuck in some ways and for your family that might be used to that money and your lifestyle, and then you've got to pull back. I think it was better for you to do it early on. You've gone at least into a couple different organizations or agencies, and at some point, some spot in that process, you had to win them over. You either had to bend them to your will, or you had to see them out, or you had to convince them in some way that this new plan, this new strategy, this new way that we were going to be taking this department under your leadership was the way to go. I'm fascinated by that, because, and I was talking to somebody about how I'm starting to think my time in Pflugerville is going to end soon, and I'm going to be looking for something else. And part of it is because I'll never have that experience in Pflugerville again. Even if I fired all 45 staff tomorrow, and I hired all new people, I'd be hiring people that went through my interview process and were excited to work under whatever interview process or style that we talked about. And so I don't know, there's something I love, the excitement about going into a new agency and maybe saying, I have to win all of these people over, the ops folks, the rec staff, maybe city council. What's your strategy for doing that? Because you've gone to a couple different places now, and at least, in Iowa, you weren't a native of that space, so you were an outsider, but you completely win them over and get them believing in your way to lead, your way to serve that community. What's some principles that you use to win the team over?
Sure. I start with transparency and curiosity. I like to make sure I'm being transparent. And I always try to be curious, but I also want to make sure I keep the boots on the ground, perspective. So there's relationships. Iowa, I was an East Coast boy coming in the Midwest, Cedar Rapids, big city. They were doing things their own way for for quite some time. So it took me a while to get that buy-in. But I strapped my boots up with them. I was out in the field. We did snow removal. We did some mowing of grass. I did some fairways. So I did some of the work to kind of really understand from their perspective what they were like, what are the challenges, as opposed to, coming in and trying to give my guidance. I was doing a lot of listening. I learned a lot. And then I was like really trying to educate myself from their perspective and what they're seeing, how I can make it better for them. Once they started seeing that was genuine, and they started seeing me, I said what I was going to do, and I did what I said I was going to do. Then they were like, all right, but we'll buy in. And then small steps, bite-sized pieces where I was like, let's try this. It worked. Okay. They bought in, and they keep buying in because it wasn't a lot of change at once. And for me, having that relationship with counsel, whether you're going out once a month, getting coffee with them, building that relationship, they'll see who you are. They'll know your principles. They'll know your integrity. So they'll know you'll be able to, how you lead. But if you're not being transparent and you're not being authentic, they're not going to see that. And I'm always open to say I'm wrong, right? We tried some things. Hey, maybe I wouldn't have gone about it this way. I learned from my mistakes. I own it. I move on. And that's what I try to do in my leadership roles, because right now I'm leading a team that's a lot older than me. They've been in their positions a lot longer than I have. So how do you get that buy-in, right? You got to stand side by side with them and really understand what their perspective is and make small change over time and really kind of get that buy-in to see the overall mission and vision of where we're headed, and also having some receipts. So they've seen that I led large scale projects and how, a method worked in Cedar Rapids. And then most recently being the director there, they've seen the success there. So how we can replicate that here back at home. And I have a nice quote that I like to say: perpetual optimism is a force multiplier. If you really believe y'all will be successful and you exude that, your team is going to believe it. So how do you continue to move that forward? So that, I know that's a long answer, but that's have worked for me over my time in the field.
I think it's important because we get a lot of people, or we know a lot of people, and they're going to take on a new job, a new role, and maybe it's the first time they've stepped out of a department they've been in for 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 years even or more. And it's not easy. And I don't think the first 18 to 24 months is easy when you're taking over a new role, especially if you're leading a department or high up in the leading of a department. It takes some time. What's cool is the next 2 or 3 years, once you turn that department over, or in the direction you want to go, is also some of the best years you'll experience, because you've climbed the mountain, you've got them all rowing one way, and now you're running downhill as a unit doing what you want. And there's nothing like it. You can't replicate it. And it starts to fizzle. It has, for me, fizzled at some point in every agency I've been. Like, you never have that challenge of winning a whole group over and then the feeling of actually accomplishing that and what it's like to run downhill. And so I completely connect with what you're saying in some of those things.
Yeah, I think there's also the approach that you mentioning about just being hands-on with them. I mean, like, there's nobody that is going to deny the buy-in when a new employee, especially a director, is there hand in hand, boots on the ground with you. Because that's typically, that means you're going to provide the resources, you're going to support them, and they can go to battle with you. And that's huge, because no one wants to, take the directive from them being at their desk and they're out in the field. So, showing that support, that goes a long way. But I want to ask you kind of a different question on that. And you mentioned, going over to Alexandria, there might have been some very tenured staff, which I think when you go into a new city, you expect that. There's going to be some folks that, like, it takes more time to win them over, or there's, maybe a perception of it, internally. Why didn't we hire someone internal versus external? Is there a challenge that you've faced in the last, few months of your new position that you weren't expecting, or like something that's been new that has been, eye-opening that you have overcome, or something that you're still tackling that you're trying to overcome?
Yeah, I'm still trying to build, I would say a stronger, and I think we're on the right track now with my deputy director. He was an interim director for the time, and he also competed for the role.
That's tough.
And yeah, and he's a professional. He's definitely a professional when it came to that. We had a frank conversation when I first started. I just wanted to address it. Before I actually started the job, I took my 3 deputies out to lunch before I even took the job, and just like, hey, let's get to know each other, start building a relationship. And that's when I started, building that rapport with him, when I realized that he was the internal candidate. And I think that's still a challenge for the team, because he was leading the organization from December until April when I got here, also a candidate. And now I'm coming in, and we're very different. We're how we go about just our, just who we are. We're very different in our approach is. And what I'm trying to shift the mindset of the organization. The last director was here for some time, and he was, in the administration. So that's the biggest challenge for me, is also knowing that I'm the leader of the organization, but also want to make sure one of my 3 deputies is we have a good rapport, knowing the history there, but also I know that I still need to be innovative, forward thinking, and make some major shifts in the organization. I don't want to do it too fast, but I know some of the things that we need to adjust. So my first 90 days, I was just listening, learning, and educating myself. And now that I'm, I think October will be my 6th month. So that's when we're going to start making some minor adjustments along the way, understanding, I guess, the human side of things, of like his experience, where he was, and making sure that I be respectful of that while still leading the organization and getting it to a direction where it needs to be for the next 10 years in the future.
Something you said as well about, we talked about imposter syndrome a lot. It comes up in that first 18 months to 2 years of any new role you take on. But you talked about essentially the undeniable proof, that stack of evidence of what you had done in previous cities, is this is who I am. this is the process I've done. This has worked in the past. And and that is a way I think mentally to combat imposter syndrome is say, I have this undeniable stack of proof that the things I've done have worked. This is who I am. This is who I am in these situations, intense moments or whatever. This is how I handle things. And you lean into that. And then you know that ultimately you're going to win the group around because you've done it in other agencies in the past. Is there anything else you do other than that to combat some of this imposter syndrome?
Now, so my wife is really helpful with that, right? Because I definitely doubt myself a lot when it comes to like some of the things, but just knowing like you've done it. Here's your receipts. You can go back and see the articles, you know what you experienced, and then going through an 8-month process. This process took 8 months to get here. So I had to show a lot of receipts. I had to go through a lot of different interviews and show my worth. So sometimes I'll be sitting in the room and like, man, I don't know how to, I'm not doing what I need to be doing. But then I think to myself, I take a minute and be like, actually, no, you can do this. You wouldn't be here if you couldn't do it. And the city manager, the council wouldn't selected you if you couldn't do this. They trust you. You're getting resistance because you're going a different route than has been gone before. Right. So don't doubt yourself. Just have a plan. Be be sure about your plan and move forward. And if you make some mistakes, you can make some adjustments along the way, but just know that it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? So you got to give yourself some grace, and make sure your partner, whoever is there to be in your corner, because my wife has definitely been in my corner throughout my career, moving all the way around the U.S., but also to help me combat that, imposter syndrome.
I love that. And Tom, we should do a hashtag earmuffs Chris Noons because he loves when we talk about imposter syndrome. But yeah.
We got a lot of hashtags. You know, I want to kind of piggyback off of the imposter syndrome, but not necessarily the topic itself, but more or less go into some of your personal philosophy. And you've traveled. We talk about this with some individuals, and you have the go to grow. You had shared that with me and put yourself out there into some uncomfortable situations. And I agree with you. When anybody asks me about how do you deal with this situation if you didn't have the experience or you didn't have the comfortability, and I think the best way to answer that question is to say, well, either I or someone else believed in me to put me in that situation, whatever that was, to make those decisions, to work through the challenges, and ultimately, hopefully, I guess, succeed in whatever it may be. And similarly, with the ability to get into an uncomfortable situation, you have to be who was it, Shane and Jay, that said you have to be comfortable? Was it Jason? Yes, Jason Mangum?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Basically, he was saying that being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yep.
And I've had to embrace that myself. So talk a little bit to that, the go to grow philosophy. How has that helped you become the professional you are and find yourself to really not only have the support system of course your wife, as you mentioned, but to get the support of the individuals that you're serving, the community, and ultimately put yourself into positions that you may not have ever felt too comfortable with, but have come out on the other side better at what you do.
Sure. I mean, because I knew my goal was always to be a leader of an organization. And in certain organizations, you start seeing, the hierarchy and the chain and how some people have been there for so long and they tried for different positions and they haven't got to that next point. So then you start, sharing your ideas. Oh, I'm gonna be a director one day. Oh, it's gonna take you 30 years because it took me, it took me 20 years to get to where I am. So it's definitely gonna take you a little bit longer. So for me, it was leaving the organization that I was with to go to another organization to promote myself. So I tried for several positions. So when I left the beach, I got the Prince William County job as a program manager. I was uncomfortable. I was going to a place where I didn't know. I had to get the buy-in from a team, and it was a large team. And then with that, I was like, oh, I'm doing this. Maybe I can try for a director position. And that's when I got the Cedar Rapids role. And the city manager, believed in me to bring me on as a director in the second largest city in the state of Iowa when I wasn't a director before. And the question was very similar to this is like, what are you going to do different? I was like, relationships. I'm good at relationships. I'm good at, building relationships. I'm good at talking to people, treating people as humans and being transparent and curious. I might not know the answer, and I'll tell my team that to this day. I don't know the answer. I need your help with this. Being vulnerable in front of your team and making sure that you can own up to your mistakes and knowing that you need their buy-in. Yes, I'm the leader of this organization and decisions need to be made, and I'll make those decisions, but I want to get your feedback. But I want to be making sure that I'm transparent and asking questions and building those relationships, because a lot of this stuff that we do at the executive level as department heads is relationships, is navigating relationships. The people that's doing the work is those mid-level managers at the direction from the senior leadership team, the deputies, et cetera. So I can come up with an idea and say, hey, we're going to have, 250 next year. We should do all these great, celebrations. My culture arts deputy director, her team is going to build that out. So it's really those relationships and how to get that buy-in and see the vision. And I think that has helped me when I've gone, moved around, when some, individuals, and I don't want to be negative here, but when some individuals told me that I wasn't, qualified for one job, the next thing you know, they're messaging me like, "Oh, I heard you got the director job in Cedar Rapids." Like, yeah, I was in your organization as my assistant director. You told me I don't have much experience as you do, or I wasn't ready for an assistant director position. I'm glad that you told me that, because I became a director. And then from there, I became another director. So I haven't had the pleasure of being assistant director, but just kind of making sure when I'm talking to people, I'm not being negative and telling them they're not qualified, because who knows what the next person, the city manager, the county executive is going to believe in or see something in that individual that they can get them to the next level. That's your opinion, and that's great to have that opinion. But when I'm talking to people, whether it's mentors or giving people information or guidance, I'm making sure that I give them 100%. You can do it. I've done it. You can do it. Whatever you think, you put your mind to it, you can do it. And making sure that I'm leading the young professionals from that perspective, because it's hard on some people when you talk about the imposter syndrome or not feeling ready. When you have a direct, supervisor telling you that you're not qualified for that next level of position, and then that hurts your ego, and it kind of hurts a little bit. But then you apply for a job, and the city manager of a huge city believes in you, gives you that director position, and that same individual is saying congratulations. It's just different. So I make sure that when you're speaking, again, back to those relationships, it's important to build healthy and positive relationships.
I think
There are so many great takeaways there. And Shane, before you come in, I want to tie back to what you shared with me and what we went over during your intro. The promoting yourself, self-promoting to in the go to grow, the way that those two, that you just tied them together. I don't know that we've really talked about that. We've talked about with Jay and with Jeff, step down to step up. But think about the perspective of what you had just talked about, and what a great lesson for individuals who are really teetering on the fence of, do I want to take another position? Do I have the drive, or can I get out of my comfort level to go somewhere else? We have social media. We talked about this with Antonio about how he's leveraged social media to an extent. And I'm not saying that you did that, Hashim, but I'm just saying that what you're saying, your story, is a pretty nice lesson that you took chances, whether or not someone in your own agency or not had the foresight to say you're going to be in this position or not. You took those chances, and you were able to use those to say, hey, I got a new position. I'm going here. I'm packing my bags. I'm celebrating this, starting this new position. That's pretty powerful. Other individuals and agencies see that. And it's not a bad way to build that resume. It's a different approach too, that I don't know that we've talked about a whole lot on this podcast, but I really enjoy that definitely the approach and how that could impact someone's career journey, which yours is definitely been very impressive.
Evolution's an incredible thing in some ways, right? When you see it happening, whatever it is, whatever is evolving or changing or getting better in some iteration. And I think that, so at least in Texas, and I don't want to speak for the country, although I feel like it's probably similar, is we're seeing city managers get opportunities at earlier ages than they used to. When I got into this, and I know I'm older than everyone on this call, but when I first got into Parks and Rec, every city manager was a 60-year-old white guy. That was just what it took to be a city manager. You had to be in public works or public safety for 35 years, and they almost just moved you up so they could get another person in there. And that's changing. And, before we hopped on the call, we were talking about Mike McDonald, and I think his name's Gannon, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, for the game last night. And Mike McDonald is, I think, 32 years old for the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. That wouldn't have happened a lifetime ago. Like, that's just not how that worked. And I think they said Gannon was like 42 and he's still the 12th youngest. And so there are 12 people between 32 and 42 that are now head coaches. That wouldn't have happened 30 years ago. And I think part of it has to do with LinkedIn, social media, and Indeed and the invention of the internet and what we can do, how connected we are. Because I think if you were a motivated, ambitious, creative, talented young professional or even mid professional in Texas, before you could find out about all the job postings in Virginia, it just wasn't an option. You didn't know about them. But now Indeed and NRPA and all the different state associations can post those jobs. And then because of the ability to do podcasts and webinars and present yourself, you get exposure to speak at conferences and events earlier than I think people at our age would have 20 or 30 years ago. And so, you're just seeing younger city managers and younger park and rec professionals and younger people. And so what I'm fascinated by, what Hashim said in some ways, is you don't get to decide who someone else is the missing puzzle piece for. Sure, my AD Jeff right now I may not think Jeff makes a lot of sense in Austin. And so I say, oh, you're probably not qualified to be a director, but he may be the absolute missing piece in a different town, whether it's in the state of Texas or not. And so you have to be really careful of the dumb shit you say to people because you really don't know. I think Stacy and I have said it on this podcast one time. You don't get to decide when your hard work pays off. I also don't think you don't get to decide when someone else's value is appreciated or where it fits. And so you, through your lens, may say, yeah, Hashim doesn't, and maybe you weren't qualified enough to be the AD in that department, but you were qualified enough to be the director in the second largest city in Iowa. I just think people should be wise to not, first of all, bring themselves into the equation at all, which is kind of what that person felt like they were doing because they were comparing you to them and your resume to theirs. But just say, you don't get to decide when someone else's value is appreciated and when or where they might be the missing piece to some organization. You're not from Iowa. You had no real Iowa connections from what I could tell. You come into Iowa and you're now taking over the second largest city in the state of Iowa. Was there any pressure at the Iowa state level? Like I better be on the board. I better be leading. I better be showing my worth because I'm now stepping into if that happened in Texas, whatever the second biggest city in Texas or third biggest city in Texas, if someone came in from the outside, I think there were Jesus, when Jesus came in from Seattle, in some ways like, all right, is he going to get on the Traps board? Is he going to lead in some sort of way in Traps? Was there any type of feeling, at least for you internally, that you had to make an impact on the state level to justify being this young director in the second largest city in the state?
Yeah, I feel like I needed to show my worth. So when we got in and started building a lot of relationships, I wasn't really involved in Iowa's Parks and Recreation Association as much, but I'd make sure my team was involved. But what I try to do is partner. We had a director's breakfast in the area that I would try to connect with them and kind of see what they were doing. And then I reached out to Ben in Des Moines, and he was instrumental because he and I are on the board now. When I was in Iowa earlier this year and last year, he was kind of like really helpful, being the Iowa connection. And I try to replicate what he was doing in Des Moines because Des Moines is on the other side of Cedar Rapids, being on the east side, and they were large, but I was trying to figure out how do I make Cedar Rapids very similar to Des Moines, even though they're separate. But I wanted to make sure that I was in line with what they were doing. So our Parks Foundation fundraising money for the organization, doing our tree planting, opening our pools, doing our golf courses. So I was trying to make sure that I was operating at a high level that we got to compare to Des Moines a lot. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to build a relationship with Des Moines to make sure that I'm in line with them so they can see that I know what I'm doing. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of pressure. Cedar Rapids is very political, and Iowa is very political. So making sure that you know what you're doing in the sense of building those relationships and kind of mirroring what the gold standard, I would say, Des Moines is doing and replicate that in Cedar Rapids.
We've been with you for a while now, Hashim, and we like to go into a little segment here where we call it rapid fire, round robin. We change the name almost every time. One of the really neat aspects about the podcast, or one of those outcomes that we didn't expect, is we have individuals like Trista Taylor who will learn something about a guest. And Trista, we have an amazing picture of you and Trista.
And that was your first time meeting her, right?
It was last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
At your event.
At the social. It's such a great picture. And it was like, again, one of those things that we didn't intend as an outcome of bringing people together. Trista will reach out to individuals who have been guests, and she'll relate to them. And it's an amazing thing, right? To have already a little bit of knowledge on someone before you've ever even met them. And for you, I want to ask you about skiing. We talked a little bit about skiing prior to the show. I told you, I skied for about 6-7 years, and then it kind of dropped out of our habits. And I feel so embarrassed because I botched up the Ski Utah slogan. It's so Disney that I'll never forget it now. It's the greatest snow on earth. That's an amazing tagline, by the way.
That's a great tagline.
Very catchy, very smart to play off of it. So you love Utah, you love to ski. For all of our ski enthusiasts out there, I don't know anything about skiing in Utah. What's the mountain they got to go to?
They got to go to Alta. Alta ski resort is amazing. I'm going to be a little bit bougie here, and I'll say Deer Valley. Deer Valley is really nice. It's right in Park City. It's probably one of the best resorts in Utah, but you can only ski there. There's no boarding. So Alta in Deer Valley.
I saw Tom do a remote control skateboard, so I couldn't imagine seeing Tom ski. I think he still has a scar in his hand to this day.
I'm great with 2 legs, but
gotcha.
you put me on one, I can't do it. I wouldn't snowboard.
Hashim,
let's put him on a snowboard.
I wouldn't do that.
He fell in front of a group of girl middle school cheerleaders, but they were at one of those like boarding schools or alternative schools. So if you can only imagine their middle school girl cheerleaders at some sort of alternative school, and he fell in front of them, and I ran over to him, asked if he was okay, and I said, what was hurt? And he said, only his ego. Greatest line. And my wife had to run and go get bandages for him, and my wife lied and said it was for our kid who had fallen because they weren't going to give us any bandages, but he had a scar for like a year.
Yikes.
So I want to talk about another thing Tom talked about, motorcycles. Motorcycle clubs, like you have nicknames, right? I'm going to test how good of a RecLess listener you are. You're going to give Tom, Jay, and I our motorcycle club nicknames. What would be our nicknames be?
Is this for each person?
Yeah. He's got to kind of like when Christine Stratton had to guess our karaoke song.
But it wasn't guessing a karaoke song. It was creating one for us.
Yeah,
that's what he's doing.
That's what we're asking.
Oh, yeah. All right. That's a tough one. That's putting me on the spot. All right.
Yeah. Do you have one?
I'll say I don't have one.
I'm you're not in a club. Okay.
I'm not in a club. I just use double it.
So you're starting a club, and where are your 3, whatever they call them, recruits or whatever? What are our nicknames? What are you going to give us?
I'm going to give you Pville.
Pville. Okay, that works. Yeah.
For Tom, I'm going to do Hollywood.
Okay.
All right.
For Jay, oh man, I don't know. That's a tough one.
What about Mafia for Bill's Mafia?
I would say Bill's Mafia, or I would say Lone Wolf.
Oh, because of the hair. Old Wolf? Did you say Old Wolf?
No, Lone Wolf. I'm thinking Wolfpack, North Carolina, for some reason.
I love it.
What's the character's name from The Hangover?
The Zach Galifianakis character?
Yeah, that's Jay is the wolf.
I love these questions.
Wolfpack.
That's Wolfpack. Yeah,
that was.
I love that movie, by the way.
Yeah, it's great.
That's a great movie.
It's one of the few comedies that, like, no matter what scene it's on, if it's on TV and I like find it, I'm watching it.
Mike Tyson's still got it. You know, they got some great lines in there.
Yeah. It does. Okay, so I'm going to continue the trend of
all right, Lone Wolf
of reigniting intro topics that Tom mentioned, and he mentioned your fandom for Disney, and I'm like in between. I'm not like an anti-Disney person, but I'm also not like a huge Disney person. So I always like asking people that like are big into Disney, like what is it for you? Like what draws you to go back there, or what's your major attraction to go to Disney?
So right before my parents got divorced, that was my first trip I did with my family. It
Okay.
was a Disney trip. It was our first family trip. So I always think back to my childhood when I had both my parents and we did a first, family vacation. So for me, it's like real deep because it puts me in a happy place when I go.
Yeah.
It makes when I'm at Disney, I'm always happy. It's always a happy-go-lucky time. It gives me a lot of like things that I need to like I'll say fill my cup for that day.
Yeah.
So when I go, it's just like you see the families there, you see everyone's happy, no one's upset. It's a space where it's the happiest place on earth. So when I go there, it's one of those moments. And just when I have that experience with my wife, it's just like that's my family. She and I and the dog, and that's just my experience. So sorry that I didn't mean to go too deep, but that's my why.
Oh,
I love it.
That's great.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
love
the
that.
whole point of asking.
That's what we'll
Yeah.
call you ears in our motorcycle club for Disney ears.
There we go. I like that.
We
Ears.
got ears.
Have you ever worn ears, Mickey ears?
I have several pair of Mickey ears, several pair.
God.
Yeah, I even have the ones that like it's like a headband that my wife had me put on one time. It was yeah, it's
Our
interesting.
wife had us put on a pair one time as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Our wife.
So-
She goes by Hollywood.
Hollywood. All right, let me go Hollywood. I like the motorcycle names. That's gonna stick.
I love it.
All right, you got the name Field of Dreams team, and we talked that you were working in Iowa when the Field of Dreams game came back to Iowa in
Cool.
22, which is kind of cool. What about some fandom? Can you share a little bit inside of where does your allegiance lie? Whether it's college or is it baseball, is it football? What do we got? What do we bring to the table if we're watching a game?
I'm bringing the Commanders. Commanders.
Commanders, that makes sense. All right.
Definitely the Commanders for sure. That's the home team, but I'm a little swayed because I've been in Iowa for a while and I had the opportunity to go through three games. So I say go Hawks, Iowa Hawkeyes.
That's an incredible experience. The game day experience at Iowa Kinnick Stadium, and then the wave into the
wave.
kids. Oh, I don't know if y'all
There's
guys
no
know
other
about that
experience.
much. Do y'all know about that?
No.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So they built.
They've done a bunch of those like ESPN specials, and yeah.
So Tom, they built a kids hospital right next to the stadium, and someone had the idea of at the end of the first quarter, I believe, everyone in the stadium turns and waves to those kids in the cancer ward, and the parents and the kids all get up. They get all the nurses get these kids up, and they no matter the opposing team, everyone does it in unison. The players on the sidelines, they all just wave to these kids as they're battling cancer. It's an incredible experience. It's a fairly new hospital, so I think it's only in the last 5, 6, 7 years that they started this tradition. But yeah, that's a really cool thing that they do.
It's great to be in the stadium
Yeah, I can
when they're
imagine.
doing that. That's a moment that
Chills.
that's why go
It
Hawks.
humanizes
It's
everything,
chills
yeah.
down your spine.
So you got to go back to Virginia. There had to be a meal that some old boy had been cooking for years at a restaurant that you were like, I'm back, and they're still there. What was a restaurant or a greasy spoon or a diner that you were just so excited to be able to get back to and enjoy?
I'm a ribs guy, so there's a spot out in Maryland. It's a little I'm not gonna say hole in the wall, but it's a smoke shop. Sundays is packed with cars. I got some rib tips and some ribs as soon as I came home,
Nice.
and we a rib platter. And boy, oh boy, was it still like the same when I left. You can go all different places and try some ribs, but oh boy, I think it's called Oh Boys.
I love it.
Oh
I
boy,
nailed it.
smoke shot. Some way down in Maryland in the country. It's that was it for me. That's when I was like, I'm home.
There's something about that food. Like I think I took Tom to Whataburger. I grew up on Whataburger, and Tom had it, and I think Tom thought it was okay. But I think we all have those spots that other people try it when they're an adult and it doesn't hit for them. But the taste, the smell, what it meant, what grandparent or parent or family member you're doing it with. It just doesn't matter if it's good to everybody else. It's like, oh man, that's home. That's that thing that no one else can recreate. Old boys, I
Yeah.
love it.
You can't beat that name. That's
No.
pretty incredible. sometimes we go back and forth on like whether these questions should be work related or not. But I'm just curious because we wrapped up a little bit at the beginning about conference. Was there one session that you attended that stood out that you had a major takeaway from?
Yeah, so it was my staff actually. So I'm still again learning the organization. So I had two staff members
Onboarding?
that were presenting. I'm sorry?
Onboarding?
Yeah, onboarding. So two of my
Okay.
staff was presenting. They did onboarding, but they also did one session that talked about part-time staff feedbacks. They have, ideas too. And going to their sessions and seeing how they represented the organization was like mind blowing because I'll be honest, some of the stuff they talked about, I had no idea that we were doing in an organization from, the onboarding manual, from the how we provide feedback to our part-time staff and our performance metrics and how we, provide that back to them so they can go grow in the organization. I had no idea, but hearing them in front of that stage and talking about the organization, I learned a lot. So I would say their session.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, that's cool. I saw that one and I actually wasn't able to attend it, but I downloaded the brochure that you guys had, kind of the welcome map, which is really neat. It's really cool. I'm going to take some of that and steal it from you guys.
They did a great job with it.
That's good stuff. Hashim, I wanted to thank you for taking all this time with us this afternoon. Your story is amazing. I'm so excited for people to hear this episode and a lot of takeaways. So really, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity, each and every one of y'all. Thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege to be on this, be on the podcast.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks for the nicknames also.
That's right.
Yes, most definitely.
All
Motorcycle
right.
Club.
See you, Hashim. Had a great weekend.
See ya.
You too.
He's
All right.
he's a really polished dude, isn't he?
Yeah.
I love that he knows who he is and just seems to be that way consistently. We get people on here and we ask them questions. Sometimes they hem and haw, or they take a second to think. It seemed like he was dialed in with who he was, his leadership style, how he does things, and is such a young guy still in the industry. I mean, he was 30 under 30, which you didn't mention, but he was 30 under 30, I think, just a couple years ago. I think he probably still qualifies for the young professional designation. So, I mean, he's got a full career ahead of him. He's already done so much. Very impressed by that guy.
I love that I got him on here before you got a chance to get him on here. That always feels good.
Birds, man.
But we've been there's some people that we get to visit with and watch from afar at the conference. I think
Yeah.
Molly Keys was one of them too, right?
Absolutely.
I didn't have a lot of conversations with Molly prior to that sit down, which again, another part of this podcast that makes it so special. You just don't get to have these conversations with people. And I've known that Hashim was basically this rising star and everybody has said great things and you just see him around, right? He has a presence and even in the small passing conversations we had. But yeah, learning what we did about him today, he's definitely in the right track and he's going places, man. I mean, he's already gone places.
Yeah. Impressive dude.
Sky's the limit.
And all the agencies he's either worked for or working at now are impressive agencies.
Legit.
I didn't mention this, but I actually was on the capital review team for Cedar Rapids, but it was the year before he got there. And then obviously I know they maintained it. I know the agency he works for now is accredited. So there's some high standards to fill when you're at agencies that are accredited and just kind of done some great things throughout the years that I've heard from others. And it's a lot to take in, especially when you're taking over a new department like that. Alexandria is an awesome city that is on the cusp of, right outside of DC. So there's always a lot of people that are traveling in and out of there. And it's a lot of times people stay there to go to DC because of the proximity and the hotels that are there. So, I mean, they're not just serving their residents, they're serving a ton of visitors too to the region. Great
All right,
job,
guys.
Hollywood.
On behalf of the Lone Wolf and Pflugerville,
Evil.
this is Hollywood. Ouch. And that's a John Prue reference. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time on RecLess.
See ya.
See ya.
This episode of RecLess wouldn't have been possible without the support of our agencies and our better halves, Melissa Salatino, Lindsay Tryon, and our executive producer, Hannah Mize. We also want to thank our director of hashtags and swag, Rooney Taylor, and our team of junior producers, Luke, James, Elizabeth, Grant, and Harper. Stay up to date on all things RecLess by following all of our social media, and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast to ensure you don't miss an episode. See you next time on RecLess.